Hello, here I am with my hoarse and sexy voice as I'm recovering from a strong cold, but nothing stops me from talking and thinking about English. So, I'm almost sure you that can speak English but are not a native speaker have already thought that our English is not good enough or that it should sound more American or more British. I myself have gone through that because that's the way we learn it, right? 9 years ago, when I was at my first undergraduate course at USP, I did an exchange program to the USA. And I got very, very frustrated when someone noticed that I was not North American. And very flattered, on the other hand, when I heard something like, "Oh, you're not from here, really?" A few years later, when I went to Uruguay and stayed in a hostel where we would communicate either in Spanish or English, a Turkish guy told me that I sounded exactly like an American girl. How amazing, isn't it? Of course, I got flattered and very proud of how far I had gotten with my English fluency and accuracy. But fluency and accuracy are not the same as sounding as a native speaker, are they? To start with, the concept of what a native speaker is has blurred lines. We usually recall the Americans, British people in general, Australians, Canadians, and stop there. These countries are, according to Jennifer Jenkins, a researcher in the English language field, part of the inner circle. Along with New Zealand, they form a group of nations, with the exception of the UK, of course, that were colonized by the English in the first diaspora. Well, there is another group of countries in Asia and Africa that was colonized by the British Empire as well. But they form the outer circle and are part of the second diaspora. We might think the name is due to a sequence, that the second diaspora came after the first one. But depending on the country, the difference is pretty small. All the colonization processes took place between the 17th and the 19th centuries. The colonization process in each place had a different purpose and subjugated or completely decimated the local culture or faced further resistance. The countries that belong to the outer circle have English as L2, while the ones in the inner circle have it as the first language. However, a considerable amount of people in South Africa or India speak English since their childhood, along with another language. But yet, most of us don't see them as native speakers. Well, putting those differences regarding colonization processes or the use of L1, L2 apart, all the nations that belong to the inner circle are developed countries, while the ones belonging to the outer circle are not. So this might not be a coincidence at all, right? And a South African English teacher, for example, doesn't have the same value as an American teacher to the market. And we know that the reason is not only due to his or her pronunciation or accent. All the inner circle countries are West countries, white countries, etc., etc., while the others are not. We always have the American English nowadays, but mostly the British English as a model to follow. So that's what happened to me, and that's what happens to a lot of people when they are learning English. Brazil is part of the expanded circle, a group of countries that don't have English either as L1 or L2, but use English to communicate to other people from around the world. Well, as I was saying, we have always had the American or British accent and variety in general as a model. But when we think about a country as the USA, for example, there are hundreds of varieties of English within the country. The same with the UK. We have to remember that England is only one country that is part of the British culture, right? We have Scotland, we have North Ireland, Wales, and even inside England, hundreds and hundreds of different varieties and accents. So when we think about a model, it simply doesn't exist. Not all British person speaks as the Queen, right? And as what we call the received pronunciation that we see in books. Speaking about books, actually, I see as an English teacher, because I have been doing this for more than 8 years, I see a difference in the books nowadays. They bring more content from other countries than USA or the UK. There is a content of audios from India, Indian speakers, and other ones, which is great. But we are still far from just abandoning these two models. And I don't think that's a solution either. I don't know. I just think that we cannot tell our students that their English is not good, that their broken pronunciation is not accepted, that his or her pronunciation is wrong, his accent is wrong, because all accents are valid and they show where you are from, right? So I used to think that I should sound as an American person when speak English. And I don't think that anymore due to years and years as an English teacher. But I see myself sometimes thinking about that. I mean, like feeling self-conscious about my English. So yeah, I don't want to sound 100% as a native speaker. But on the other hand, as an English teacher, I want to have an excellent pronunciation. And of course that I demand a lot from myself. But just to illustrate a little of what all of those varieties represent, take a look at this video.
Lassie got glassed and no cunt leaves here till we find out what cunt did it. Who the fuck are you? Yes!
As you could see in the video, it was very hard to understand all that he was saying in that scene, right? If you scroll down to the comments, you see that even native speakers from other places don't understand what the guy was talking about. We would need a dictionary and listen to it many and many times to get it. And they are native speakers because he is Scottish. The movie is Scottish. And we know that in Scotland, people speak English for centuries and centuries. So, as you can see, there is not only one model or variety of English. There are many varieties. And as a teacher, it's nice to include other varieties in the classroom, as I said before, showing to our students that all varieties and that his or her variety and accent matters, and it's important and part of their identity.